lots going on with immigration these days. We have the couple of big stories that are catching a lot of national attention. Mahmoud Khalil, the guy who got deported after the Colombia protests. We also have what's going on with the Garcia fella down in El Salvador, and you have a congressman going and visit him, Chris Van Hollen, today. But there's a lot of smaller, lesser-known stories out there that are being affected by new immigration policy. Number one is a handful of students have had their visas revoked. Let's talk to my next guest. Susha Modi is on the James Show. And tell me a little bit more about this. Who all has lost their student visas, and what was the pretext for it, Susha?
Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me. Actually, a lot of individuals have had this. We've had a lot of consultations about it. AILA, American Immigration Lawyers Association, has estimated that about over 4,500 students have had their status terminated. And this is a big deal. This is unprecedented. You know, I've practiced almost 15 years immigration law, and there's a distinction between the visa, like a student visa, which could be revoked. That's mostly for traveling. Okay. And the actual status itself being terminated with like no notice, no deportation proceedings or anything. It's just terminated in the...
So what's that one called? There's the one student visa for traveling, I guess, if you wanted to come here and just visit, take some pictures and leave, and then versus actually going to school here. Do I have that right?
Not exactly. So for coming here, that's a visitor visa.
Okay.
And for studying, it would be a student visa, but that's like outside the U.S. coming in. What we have going on now is people that have been approved student visas, like students here going to school, and then without any notice, like no immigration court hearings or anything, no notice at all, no real due process, they just get alerted from their school that their status has been terminated on an online program called SEVIS. And we're getting a lot of these calls. And like I said, it's unprecedented. It hasn't really been done like this before. The visa could be revoked, but not the status. The status itself, you usually get an opportunity to respond, due process, court hearings, things like that.
So what's the difference between the visa and the status?
Visa is really used for travel. The status is when you're already here, like you have legal status in the U.S. Okay. And that's what's happening is they're just waking up one day without any process or anything, and then a notification from the school that their status has been terminated. It's really appalling.
So what students are having their visas revoked? Are we talking about students who have participated in protest or are a part of certain groups, or do we even know?
It seems to be a broad swath of students. So, for example, we've done a bunch of consultations with individuals with incredibly minor crimes. Like the crime would not even trigger what's called a deportability ground. So they wouldn't even be put in immigration court for it. Like one example was a lady in a PhD program who had a DUI that was dismissed, not even convicted, dismissed, many years ago, 7 or 8 years ago. And now, while she's in the PhD program, she's just told that her status has been terminated.
So what's happening to these students? Do they have to leave and then appeal their decision or reapply? Is there any appeals situation? I don't know what the next step is.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So, they have a couple of different pathways. One is something called student visa reinstatement that they could apply for with the government to get their student status reinstated. The problem with that is, one, it goes to the government, to USCIS, the immigration agency. Two, it takes a long time. It could take 6 to 9 months with all these recent issues of everybody else filing for these student visa reinstatements. You could get a huge delay on that processing time. So there's a couple of problems with it, but that's one option, is the student visa reinstatement. And the second one is a federal lawsuit. And we've seen several lawsuits already be filed. We know of one that's at least been successful with a federal judge, where their status was temporarily reinstituted by a federal judge.
Okay, I think I saw that headline. By the way, we're talking with Susha Modi. He's a local immigration attorney here in Texas. Was this the Dartmouth students that had the successful lawsuit? I just remember a headline. I didn't read the story.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And the underlying basis for it was a motion for preliminary injunction, but the basis for it is that it was arbitrary or capricious. So kind of like we talked about, all these students are being, put in together, even if they have, little or no criminal history, even if the criminal history isn't a ground for deportation proceedings, even if the criminal matter was dismissed, meaning they were never convicted. So all these individuals have just had their status terminated. And so one of the legal arguments could be, is it arbitrary the way that the government's going around doing it and without due process? So immigrants still have a right under the Fifth Amendment for due process. So and that individual was successful in getting his status reinstituted. There's several other lawsuits pending across the nation. And I think there's also a class action being looked at as well.
All right. So if you're a student that had your visa revoked, what's the first thing you need to do, Modi?
Definitely they need to contact a good immigration attorney. Because
do they have to go home and contact an immigration attorney, or do you recommend they stay here and try and get it done on U.S. soil?
That's a great question, too. If they leave, they actually cannot file a student visa reinstatement. So they could be hurting their chances for a student visa reinstatement in that sense if they leave. The other issue is if they leave, there could be jurisdictional issues with the lawsuit, like whether they have standing and things. So the two potential chances they have here that we're currently talking about, it's likely that they're going to need to be in the United States to fight their case.
A lot of us are looking at this from the outside. Native-born folks like myself are saying, you don't participate in any of these protest movements and you actually just go to school and worry about your grades and maybe you can duck some of this criticism. Is that something you would recommend as an immigration attorney?
Well, we've done a lot of consults this week on this particular issue, and none of them actually had protests.
Interesting.
They weren't involved in any of the protests. This just seems to be like a broad swath. Maybe they're using an AI agent or something.
Just anyone with a criminal background or violation, or do some people have completely clean records and we have no idea what it possibly could be?
I think several of them could have a criminal issue, but it was completely dismissed, or it was so minor that it doesn't even trigger deportation proceedings. So it seems to be that they're just trying to figure any trigger out. And then I've heard of other immigration attorneys that have had consults that have no criminal history. So quite inefficiently done. Almost all the consults I've had, and I've had a lot in the last week, have had criminal issues either that were not convicted, like dismissed, or the criminal issue was so minor that it wouldn't even trigger a deportation case.
Interesting. All right, Susha Modi, I appreciate your expertise. He's an immigration expert here in Texas, and thank you for being on the James Show. Chris Van Hollen, a guy in Congress from Maryland, is taking a trip out to El Salvador to rescue an MS-13 El Salvador citizen and bring him back to Maryland? Okay. You'll hear from him in just a second. I need to review a couple things here. Before we get into Chris Van Hollen's fun little selfie vacation, it was established on yesterday's show that unless 18 people around this situation are lying, this Abrego Garcia guy, the El Salvador dude, he's not a citizen of the United States. He is a citizen of El Salvador. He came here in 2011. In 2019, he got busted and some charges were thrown at him, and it was a bunch of charges. Nothing huge, but a bunch of little charges: human trafficking, domestic violence, things of that nature, on top of the crimes that come with being here illegally. So it was at that point that he claimed asylum because it's too dangerous for him to go back to El Salvador. He risked death. And so our overly generous immigration system said, okay, we'll just let you stay here in Maryland. Now, all of the media has been calling him a Maryland father, but for the couple people who didn't hear the show yesterday, this is when Bukele had stopped and met with Trump in the White House. There's Trump, there's Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, there's Stephen Miller behind her. And they all made the case to the media that why would we send this guy back? He is home. He's an El Salvador native and citizen. He belongs in El Salvador. Maybe or maybe not in the prison, but certainly not in Maryland. Here's Pam Bondi from, I guess this was Monday or Tuesday.
Go ahead. Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CBS.
This was Monday.
Low-rated. Which one is that?
The man who was mistakenly deported to El Salvador.
Well, let me ask Pam, would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us.
All right, so we have a guy who, look, unless a couple of courts got it wrong, it looks like he's a member of the MS-13 gang. It looks like he's been rolled up in crime, in addition to illegally being here for the last 14 years. And so, well, some people see this story and they're like, we got to go rescue the Salvadorian MS-13 gangbanger from El Salvador and bring him back illegally to the United States. I know this sounds like a cartoon that I'm making up, but Chris Van Hollen is visiting El Salvador himself. So don't take it from me. This isn't me saying it. This is Chris Van Hollen saying it. This is from today. He flew down to El Salvador. This is where he's at right now, trying to get this guy out of jail and back in Maryland.
I just landed at the airport in San Salvador a little while ago. I'm now en route into the city, looking forward to meeting with the team from the American Embassy. And I do want to thank our Foreign Service officers and the whole team at this embassy and embassies around the world for all the good work they do on behalf of our country. I'm proud to co-chair the bipartisan Foreign Service Caucus that stands up for the men and women who are serving our country overseas and at home in the State Department. After that, I hope to meet with some high-level government officials from El Salvador. As I've said before, the goal of my visit is to talk to people here about the release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. I told his wife and his family I would do everything possible to bring him home, and we're going to keep working at this until we're successful. I also hope to have the chance to meet with him, but we'll have a better idea if that works out a little later on.
All right, so there he is, Chris Van Hollen. You know, he put together another selfie before he left, but it was just him in the airport saying the same thing. It's like, dude, we know you left. Why do you have to keep making selfies about every hour and a half to let us know? It's almost like this is a PR stunt.
I'm here at the airport. I'm about to board my flight for San Salvador. The goal of this mission is to let the Trump administration, to let the government of El Salvador know that we are going to keep fighting to bring Abrego Garcia home until he returns to his family.
All right. I found the perfect reply to this, because not only did he say this, it was almost as if he was reading from his Twitter feed, because he tweeted earlier right before he got off the plane in San Salvador, the capital of El Salvador. I'm going to read you a tweet and then the perfect reply to it, and then I want to hear your thoughts. 800-288-9227. He said, Chris Van Hollen tweeted, I just landed in San Salvador a little while ago. Look forward to meeting with the team at the U.S. Embassy to discuss the release of Mr. Abrego Garcia. I hope to meet with Salvadoran officials and Kilmar himself. He was illegally abducted and needs to come home. Okay, but before you answer, listen to this reply on Twitter from Insurrection Barbie. You might already follow her if you're terminally online like me, but she says, so glad you're in El Salvador to rescue a criminal illegal alien member of MS-13. Too bad you couldn't give the same courtesy to the mother of Rachel Marin, who lives in Maryland, his district, and was brutally murdered and raped by an illegal alien. Did you listen to her 911 call? Do you know how hard she fought for her life? Do you wonder how her kids are doing today? No. Of course you don't, because you are the lowest common denominator. You couldn't be bothered to show compassion or mercy for someone who lives in your own state because it doesn't work for your political agenda. But you have no problem jumping on a plane to rescue some criminal illegal alien because you think that makes you some kind of hero. You are not a hero. You are the lowest form of low, and I will pray for your soul because you will need it. All right, Insurrectionist Barbie. I am floored. We have a sitting member of Congress who's going to El Salvador to try and get an illegal alien member of MS-13 convicted of crimes in the United States, including domestic violence and human trafficking. And you're worried about going and getting this guy out of jail and bringing him back to Maryland? Because what? We missed the new cover sheet on our TPS reports? So concerned about due process. You weren't concerned about the due process for some of our Air Force veterans that loitered through Statuary Hall on January 6th. Now throw them in jail for 2 years without a hearing or bail. Screw those guys. But an MS-13 guy who's not even from here, who's not even an American, I've got to go save him. How backwards is this? There's been some concern with the elimination of the Department of Education. Well, in theory, I think technically it still exists on paper. Some people are worried about how that will affect people who get student loans and financial aid through the Department of Education. What's going on there? My next guest may have some answers for you. He's the CEO of Busy Kid, Greg Merced. Welcome to the James Show.
Hey, how are you doing?
Doing okay. So if you are a student and you're getting, I know the studio audience is in a good mood today. If you're getting financial aid through the Department of Education, do you have anything to worry about?
Well, just don't sit around waiting for him to just evaporate your loan. That's never going to happen, I don't think. So I think that everybody should be thinking about this. We have $1.8 trillion in student debt. Like, that's insane. And so we've got to be thinking about this. We've got to get kind of people thinking forward to where they want their kids to graduate with little to no debt at all. And what do I need to do to get there? That's what we need to be thinking about.
Okay, so what changes have been made that people need to know about?
Well, not a lot of changes have been made. They always are pushing this FAFSA stuff, right? Get your loan applications in. Yeah, always kind of continually doing that. But what we really, I think that the main thing we should do is paint a vision for the next generation. And that should be, like I said, get through school without any debt, and maybe a little if you have to, but don't make it so insane that your kids don't want to go to college, right? You don't beat that drum so hard, but they need to be able to think that way. And honestly, get them involved with the process. Get them thinking about earning money, but also growing their money so that they can kick in for college when the time comes. If you do that, they'll figure it out and they'll get good at it. And then all of a sudden, you're not having to try to figure this out as a parent all on your own.
Well, look, you seem to be a guy who helping people figure out their financial options for college. I am kind of optimistic to see how things would be different if we got rid of the Department of Education altogether. And it's not like we're never going to give anyone any financial aid. It just won't be through the federal government. What does that scenario look like to you, Greg?
Yeah, I think the privatization of that all makes a little more sense to me, for sure. And I think kind of getting the government out of the way is probably a good idea. I think it'll also make... Yeah,
well, Greg, a lot of people in your space aren't saying that. They like having the gravy train flow downward from D.C., but you seem to have something closer to my opinion. I appreciate your optimism on that.
Yeah, of course. And I think people should be more accountable. I think this idea of administrations floating these ideas of we're going to waive your loans or we're going to reduce your loans is nonsense. Like, if they get into the debt, they should pay it off. Period. Kind of end of story for me. I think it's better to not get into it at the first place. There's a lot of amazing trade school options these days. There's a lot of options when it comes to community colleges to kind of start off your college degree. I have one son. He's literally right now taking 25 credit hours. He's a beast. I mean, not everybody can do that.
Jeez.
But he's doing a lot of the stuff online, and he just got accepted to law school, and here he is, no debt, ready to go into law school. That's the way to do it. And if you can do these kind of better options, you can navigate this stuff and not just be insane and get $100,000 into debt.
Well, I've always been interested in seeing what happens if we get rid of the Pell Grants and the Stafford loans and the FAFSA and all the stuff that comes from the federal government, because one of the immutable laws of economics is if you subsidize something, you will either get more of it or you will get a higher price. And we're going to have the same amount of butts and seats when it comes to college next year, whether or not we subsidize it. So it really just makes the price go up. And you can draw a straight line. The amount of money that we've been throwing through the Department of Education at colleges with the increase in tuition, I know it sounds counterintuitive to a lot of people, but getting rid of all this financial aid through government should make the cost of college go down ultimately. Does that sound like crazy talk to you?
It doesn't sound like crazy talk. I think the other thing that it would do, it would get kids more motivated as they're going through the college experience, meaning they should be working. Like they should. I don't understand how, you can get these grants, you can get these loans, and you don't really have a job and you barely work, if anything at all, and you're driving a BMW. This is crazy. Like, this is totally insane. It would get kids more motivated to get out there, like I did, and work while you're going through college, and a lot. So, yeah, I think you got to align the incentives. If you can do that, it'll probably drive down the price and get people more motivated to get out of college without a huge, millstone around their neck with debt that they're going to have to pay for literally like 30 years. It's just crazy.
Wow, I'm quite pleasantly surprised how much we agree on this. Usually I have to spar with people who are like, well, we can't just withdraw financial aid. No, poor kids will be able to go to college or whatnot. And I always find that incredibly shallow. Thank you very much, Greg Merced from Busy Kid.
You bet. All
right, you can check him out. He has some good apps that may help out your kiddos. BusyKid.com. BusyKid.com. All right, coming up next, looks like we have a couple callers on the student debt issue. If you want to jump in, 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, homeowners. On a long enough time scale, you are going to need a new roof. That is a guarantee for your house. You may not need new windows. You may not need new flooring. You may not need a new throne to sit on in the bathroom, but you will need a new roof. It's just a matter of time. Why wait until it's too late, until there's giant costs? Why don't you catch it early or ahead of time? Get a free roof inspection from Blue Ribbon Roofing. They'll come out there, and if they find anything wrong, we'll talk about how to fix it. If you do need a whole new roof, they can help you deal with the insurance paperwork and filing a claim and then refiling a claim with some extra details in there to get you more money. They'll help you with all that. But if everything's fine, it doesn't cost you anything. I'm not asking anything out of you, and you can get a little bit of peace of mind. So if something does happen to your roof in the future, you now have a baseline set, so it'll help you with your insurance paperwork when you actually need it. So homeowners, do the right thing. If you love your house, if you love the James Show, if you love WBAP, you can help out one of our sponsors and your house at the same time. Go to BlueRibbonDFW.com. And it's not just because he supports us and he's also helping with WeatherCon. It's because it's a family company here in North Texas that does the right thing for their clients. BlueRibbonDFW.com. This is Chris in Frisco. Your thoughts?
Well, my thought is this. Why don't the colleges fund the kids?
Explain.
So instead of me having to take my tax dollars and getting no benefit, I'm not getting any interest. The government's getting interest. Why doesn't the college, if you want to go to Yale, why wouldn't the college just finance the kid?
Well, I love that. I think there's a couple of obvious answers for that, and I'm sure you'll have some replies. But let's walk through this because you're asking some great fundamental questions here. Number one, it used to be like that. We didn't have the federal government who sees the student loan program or even subsidizing them. The student loan whole industry got nationalized under the Obamacare bill for some reason. But I mean, that's when it happened. And before that, they were still subsidizing loans with Stafford loans and stuff like that when I was in college. But the real answer to that is, well, some kids wouldn't get a loan, or some kids, look, the colleges won't get as much money if they do that. If the colleges have to be on the hook for everyone that goes through, how are they going to give out stupid degrees like women in gender studies? How are they going to get worthless degrees out there like underwater basket weaving or post-colonial DEI in Cameroon? You know, like who would get a theater degree under those circumstances? Exactly my point. Well, see, now that we've walked through that step, we go to the next logical step that I like, Chris, is if the onus should not be on the government or the taxpayers if you can't pay off your student loan. The real culprit here, the real person you should be angry at, is the college that gave you that degree that obviously wasn't worth the price they charged you for it. You got defrauded by your own college. So why should we pay for it? So, yeah, I know. I love that line of questioning, Chris. That's beautiful.
It's because most kids who graduate from college, I shouldn't say most, but a lot of kids who graduate from college never even use their degree in the field that they got it in.
Oh, we know these stats. Only 44% do.
I didn't know the number that it was that low.
Well, look, there's worse statistics than that. Let me give you the real statistic. So for the people that go, and I don't know what the numbers are for last year. I just done a show a few years ago on this, and I've done this show 1,000 times in the 20 years I've been on talk radio. Of all the people that enter college, there's only like not even half. Is it about half? I think it's about half of them actually finish the 4-year degree. And then once they get it, only 44% of them actually, and when you separate, I think it was 5 or 10 years out from their graduation date, are working in the field in which they got their degree. So it's something minuscule, like 23% of the people that go to college actually end up working in that field with that degree. So like 75% of us are wasting our money on college. I went to college to be a computer programmer, and I can program computers that were here 20 years ago. I don't know if I could even do that job now because technology's passed me by so far. But if I had not spent 1 cent on college, there's reason to believe I would still be in the same seat I'm in now.
Mm-hmm. So I can tell you this, I'm one of 3 sons, 2 parents that have been married together for 60 years, and they both worked 3 jobs to pay for all of us kids to go to school.
Yeah.
Well, they had no student debt.
No, and look, this is another in the long list of government programs that, from my point of view, are just trying to do the job a dad is supposed to do. Just think about all the programs we have for kids that are dad's jobs, like food stamps or free lunch at school. Who's supposed to make sure you have lunch at school? Oh, that's right, your dad. And if you don't have food for your kid during the day, you don't need to go after the taxpayers and say, what's wrong? Can y'all not pay for this? You need to go after the dad and say, what's wrong? Are you starving your kid? No. If you're starving your kid, you shouldn't get a subsidy for starving your kid. We should call CPS and maybe look at taking them away, not subsidizing terrible parenting, but public housing, putting a roof over a kid's head. That's supposed to be a dad's job. After school programs for sports or hobby, or, like playing catch, that's literally one of dad's jobs. So when you talk about, all this financial aid stuff, you're trying to replace the job a dad is supposed to do, which again, just like when we're talking about the Wilmer Hutchins school shooting and all these other school shootings, and violent crime with our youth, a lot of this comes back to, hey, you don't need metal detectors and clear backpacks. You need dads. That's what the safe schools have. Dads. That's what the schools with high academics have. Dads. Can we try dads? Kevin in Carrollton, if that's not too toxic for you, you're next up on WBAP.
I just think our federal government makes it way too easy to go grab this money. Case in point, I graduated high school in the mid-'90s. I got a football scholarship, and I'm here to tell you that every athlete that I know in football and basketball still applied for all these grants and all these loans, and they still got them. Although our room, our board, our books, our tuition, everything was paid for. But when those loans deposited in their account, the new video games, the new clothes, the new shoes, it was just a money grab, and I just don't understand it.
Well, it's the same thing you see with Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, USA, Department of Education. Once it goes into the hands of the government, there is no more incentive for efficiency or judicious use of your scarce resources. Waste, fraud, and abuse is not only the norm; it's incentivized.
You make a good point, and I will say this. I made some very bad decisions when I was a young man. And I lost my scholarship.
No. Right? You're talking to another guy who lost his scholarship. So, yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah. So, like I lost my scholarship because it didn't mean nothing to me because really, it wasn't my money that I was putting up. So you know what? I got my life together, joined the military. I used my GI Bill. It got exhausted, and I'm currently using Hazelwood Act. So basically what I'm saying, kind of to agree with what you have, I have more incentive to complete the task at hand if it's something that I paid into or something that I received, such as my military benefits. But when me and some of my friends who were athletes, very young at the time, it's just free money, so we don't give a damn how we spend it.
Well, here's even more eye-opening for those of you who are just concerned about getting your education, getting these kids' education. You have the entirety of the MIT degree programs online for free. You can go register for it. Hillsdale College does this too, and I've actually taken some of their classes. You can go to college for free now. What you're paying for is the piece of paper the shingle that you can put on your wall that opens doors. But the knowledge out there, it's been democratized ever since the internet came online, and we all know how to use it now. You can go learn. No one's stopping you. Anyone, you, students, adults, people who are looking to retool your skill set for the next career, no one's stopping you from going and learning it right now. These 19-year-olds that are in the DOGE team with Elon Musk, who do you think taught them Python when they were 16? Themselves. It's all there. It's all out there. All you got to do is go want to get it. And the rest of this just seems to be a bunch of hokey pokey to keep political activists employed. All these Title IX coordinators and DEI consultants and all these other programs. And, think of how many administrators are in the college compared to 20, 30 years ago. It's more than doubled, even though the amount of students has stayed about the same. That's where your problem is. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. And America, we got about 3 years to fix this before my oldest kid goes to college. So let's get working on that.